Not exactly. It's the end of December, and we are just a few short days from the brand new year. So, how did this year go for you? If you're like many, 2025 was a very difficult year because it was the year of the snake. And it was also a 9 year, which means it was a year full of shedding skin, letting go of old things, old philosophies, and things just didn't exactly work out the way that you want. However, in 2026, we are coming across a fire horse year. And if you don't know much about Chinese astrology, horse is hardworking, lots of adventure, lots of great accomplishments. And then when you add on top of that the fire element, it's going to be an epic year. But if you're like many, and every single year you set intentions, and next thing you know, a few weeks, if not months, go by, and all those intentions are forgotten, they fall apart, and your year didn't exactly go the way that you wanted it to. Well, this year we are going to do it differently, and I'm going to show you a method that helps me set really great intentions and a game plan, a roadmap for achieving those goals. By the end of this video, not only will you set the right intentions, but you'll have an easy to execute roadmap to helping you get there and making 2026 a year that you will always remember. So, are you ready to embrace this new fire horse year? Buckle up and let's get started. Ne réfléchis pas trop, la vie est courte, mon amour. Ne réfléchis pas trop. Hi, my name is Nikki Vo, and welcome to my lab. I am a recovering corporate executive with over 20 years of experience developing successful innovations for the chemical industry. But at the age of 47, I realized I'm no longer living the life that I want. So in this channel, I'm rediscovering who I am and rebuilding the life that I want. I'll share my knowledge and experience from those 20 years and how I'm going to use it to rebuild the life that I've always wanted. So join me on my journey, and together let's build an amazing life. To set the right path and achieve our goals, there are actually 6 things that we need to do. The first is your goal and vision. The second is to narrow down that focus. Third is define the leading and lagging indicators. Fourth is we're going to develop an execution strategy. The fifth is we're going to define a mini milestone plan. And the sixth is we're going to review and revise. Oh, and if you stick around, I will share one bonus that will give your New Year's plan that chef's kiss. You ready? To set the right goals and intentions, we want to build a roadmap that's going to make this year amazing by defining 6 different parts, as I had mentioned earlier. The first thing we want to do is to brainstorm goals and vision. We're not really defining our goal and vision just yet. We just want to brainstorm. And to do that, there's actually 3 different buckets that I like to think about. The first bucket is going to be future intentions. So this could be things like, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to be? And then what does a successful year look like? Those are your future intentions. For me, I wanted to become active in YouTube. I want to build a community to inspire others to also redesign and build their life strategically. And I also want to create candles and start to share or sell them. Eventually, I want to have my own business where I can sell candles and help inspire others. The other bucket that you can also think about, and again, with each bucket, what you want to do is don't hold back. Just think of all the things that you want to accomplish, what you want to be, and what does a successful year look like. The other bucket is what I call backwards reflection. So if 2025 wasn't exactly the year for you, and I'm sure that you've reflected back to see what worked, what didn't work, what were areas that you want to improve upon, that's where you can note that down. So what worked and you want to do more, what didn't work and you want to do differently, but also what are some lessons that you've learned? What are opportunities that you didn't take but you want to take now? Don't hold back, reflect, brainstorm, write everything down. For me, in the year of 2025, there's a lot of things that I realized I didn't do so well. First of all, I didn't take care of myself well. I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, and I didn't exercise. So for me, my health is a place I want to improve on. The other thing I realized I didn't do very well is I didn't have a strong relationship with my faith. I was not consistent in prayer, in reading the Bible, and also having faith. And then finally, the last thing that I recognized in 2025 is I didn't have the career that made me proud. There was aspects of employees as well as the jobs that I was responsible for that I actually didn't do well in. So there's a lot of aspects in that job where I could do differently. Again, don't hold back, brainstorm. Right now, we're not going to whittle it down. That's what the next section is going to be. And then the last thing we want to do, the last bucket, is this, what I call the fun outside of the box bucket. These are things that fit neither the future thinking or the backwards reflection. These are things that, hey, this is on my bucket list. I've always wanted to do it. I never tried. And so those are things that you want to note down. So bucket list, this could include hobbies, a new adventure, maybe travel, maybe join a new group, pick up a new sport. These are things that are going to be fun, outside of the box, things that you could not put in the other two buckets. So for me, what I want to do more in 2026 is I actually want to travel more, and I want to join more clubs or groups of like-minded people. I was very much so focused in my career that I didn't spend a lot of time in joining the clubs or groups. But the other thing I want to do is I want to pick up the hobby of candle making and perfumery, and eventually I would love to make that as my business. But that is related to this. So again, don't worry about what you put in here. It could be the same as the two above. They could be completely different. The idea is to just brainstorm. So 3 things: future thinking. What are your intentions? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to be? What does a successful year look like? Backwards reflection. What worked? What would you do more of? What didn't work? What would you do differently? What are the lessons that you learned, and what are the opportunities that were missed? And then your fun box. These are items on your bucket list: hobbies, adventure, travel, group, sport. So the next thing you want to define is now you want to narrow your focus. One of the things that I see a lot of people do is they have so many things that they want to accomplish. And because of that, they put everything on their intention list. They want to work out, eat healthy, lose weight, have more faith, develop better friendships, improve their skill set, gain a new hobby, be a better employee, be a better spouse, be a better sibling, be a better friend. So much is on their plate that one of the reasons why the New Year's intentions fall flat is because you have so much that you're going for. And so when you go for too many things, you actually don't have a lot of progress in any one area. So do yourself a favor and redefine those intentions and whittle it down to 1, 2, maybe 3, no more than 3. And the way you want to do this, what top 1 to 3 focus areas? You want to go through your list and start ranking them or putting numbers to this. So if you feel like, yes, this is absolutely something I want to do, put a 1 next to it. If it's something you don't want to do or it's not that important, put a 10 next to it. And if you don't really have any feelings about it, maybe it's a neutral feeling, or there are things that you do want to do, but not exactly, put a 5 to it. And that's where you're going to start to see, once you zoom out of your list, things that are going to pop out as your top 1 to 3. For me, I definitely want to be more active in YouTube. That's going to be a 1. I want to build a community. However, I think that's going to happen after I become more active in YouTube. Again, I can't do everything at once. So building a community is going to be after I am active in YouTube and creating content that people will like and people will follow, and I'm consistent at it. So therefore, that building a community will become a 5 for me. And then creating a candle, making that my business, that's also going to be a priority for me. Things I didn't take care of myself, I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, I didn't exercise. The health is where I want to improve upon, yes. And I also want to have a strong relationship with faith. That's also a yes for me. What would I do differently in my career? It could be things like take up leadership training, maybe find an executive coach. But for me, what I really want in this 2026 is to put more time and effort into the things that's going to make me happy. So I want to focus on YouTube, my candle making business, but also taking care of myself with strong faith. So therefore, my career is going to actually take a back seat for 2026. Now, when you go do this, you're going to have so many different options. Just don't think about it. Trust your gut. 1, 1, 5, or 10. Outside of the box thinking, I want to travel more. Absolutely. Is that a necessary? Not 100%. So I am going to put that as a 5. It'd be great if I could, but I am not going to put a lot of focus on traveling because I actually want my YouTube channel up and going and I want to be consistent in it. Join more clubs and groups. Yes, very, very helpful, but again, not a priority. And then the candle making and perfumery as my hobby. Absolutely. That ties in with this creating candles business. If I can narrow that down, my number ones are this: YouTube, be active. Number 2 is candle making. Definitely perfumery, but that might just go after candle making. I want to just focus for the time being in my candle making. And then 3, take care of myself. And then the faith is definitely another one. I'm going to add that in here just because it's so close to taking care of myself. And hopefully I can figure out a way to combine them together. So I really am just focusing on the top 1 to 3 focus area. What is not on this list? Travel, focusing on my career, joining more clubs or groups, other hobbies, like for example, I might want to take up tennis, and those are things that are not on my narrow focus list. So rank them, figure out your top 3, and then from your top 3, what you want to do is there are 2 things you want to figure out. So the first is, of this top 3, what is what's called the North Star or what's called the Keystone? That is the one thing that out of everything, if you can do that, that is the one thing that will make 2026 something you can be very proud of. Awesome if you could do all of your top 3 goals, but you really want to focus on the one thing. And what's really cool is if those 3 top goals are somehow interconnected, then you just really have to figure out what is the one thing I got to do this year that will take care of everything else. For me, my North Star for the year, the thing I'm going to focus on is YouTube. And in that YouTube, I'm going to use candle making as a hobby, and that will help me narrow 2 things into one, but mostly I just want to focus on YouTube. That is my North Star. The next thing you want to do after you've defined your goals and vision, you brainstormed it, you defined it, you narrowed it down to the top 3, and you picked your North Star or your keystone goal, then what you want to do is figure out the leading and lagging indicators. What is that? If I just for now focus on YouTube as candle making, I need to figure out, okay, what are the things that I can consider as a lead? Those are the things that I myself can control. Those are the things that I put effort into. Example of the YouTube is I can put an intention to do 1 YouTube video per month. Now, if I do more, that's great, but that's my goal. Actually, let's put it a little bit more because I definitely want to do more. I want to do 2 YouTube's videos per month. That is my effort that I can control. The other leading indicator is I actually want to spend at least 3 hours per week on my candles, whether it's experimenting, learning, trying new things out, or figuring out what my next candle is going to look like. I want to spend at least 3 hours per week on my candle hobby. And then for each of these, again, you want to define 3 to 5 leading or lagging indicators. Don't put too much in it. The other thing I want to put as my leading indicator is, first of all, I'm going to put YouTube as publish 2 YouTube videos per month. I also want to spend 3 hours per week on my candle knowledge, and I want to also spend 1 day per week on my YouTube learning. I want to learn how can I make the best YouTube videos out there, what are the things that I want to optimize in so that folks, when they come to watch my YouTube, it's going to be most effective so that I can have that impact. Now, let's talk about lagging indicators. So a lag is things that if you put in the effort, and those are the variables that you're going to control, what is the result of those efforts? For example, 2 YouTube videos per month. What is my lag to that? So that's going to be community growth, so subscriber growth. I'm going to monitor every month or every week how much is my subscriber growth going to happen. That tells me I'm on the right path in terms of publishing really effective YouTube videos. Also, because of the candles spending 3 hours per week, I also want to I'm going to want to know how many number of experiments in candles am I going to have, and also how many candles am I going to make. By monitoring how many experiments and how many candles I'm making, I can then then start to understand, is my spending 3 hours per week in my candle knowledge helpful? And what are the successful candles that are working? If I'm constantly failing in my candle making experiments, it means that I'm actually not learning on what to do differently in my candles. I also want to spend that 1 day per week in YouTube learning. So I actually have a YouTube module or course that I want to go through, and for that I want a percent progress done for the year. Those are my lagging indicators. So again, 3 to 5 things on what can you control, what is the effort that you're going to put in, and what is your lagging indicator, what is the result of your efforts. These are things that are going to help you monitor progress. If you monitor your progress and something here is not trending in the right direction, you know that there are something different that you need to do with your leading indicators. That's how you define your lead lag indicators for your North Star. The next thing you want to do is to develop the execution strategy. This execution strategy is going to be a few things. You're going to first want to have milestones, your deliverables, and you're going to have time phases or deadlines. And then you want to talk about what of the lead lag indicators does it relate to. So let's go through, for example, my milestones. So in month 1, we're going to do January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. For this one, I actually want to create candles that are actually working. The goal here is to have a YouTube where I'm growing subscriber growth and eventually having a business where I can sell my candle creations. My goal is by November, I want to have a working candle that I can sell. Now that means that I have between now and October 10 months to work on this. So I can divide it in a couple ways. I can divide it by every month, or I could divide it by quarters. So this is Q1, this is Q2, and then this is Q3. So in Q1, I need to figure out what is my raw materials that I need to make the most effective candle jars. I need to define that. So those are going to be a number of experiments where experiment 1, 2, 3, and 4 is going to be, those are going to be a number of experiments I'm going to need to define in order to make the best candle jar. So wick, jar, etc., fragrance, dye. So this is going to be everything that I will do in Q1. In Q2, this is where I optimize. And from this, I'm going to define perhaps 1 candle per month, or I could do 1 candle per week where I'm going to try a new formulation with the different fragrances. So that means a total of 4 times 3, 12 candles. And then in Q3, this is where I'm going to start to package everything up. So this is going to figure out what's the best label, what's the best brand logo, what's the best package, and then I want to figure out how to advertise these candles so that I can start to sell. And then what is my price point? So all that's going to happen in Q3. Those are the things I'm going to need to do to create my execution strategy. The next thing you want to do is create a smaller milestone. Pick your very first milestone. Define your first milestone. And again, similar to the execution strategy, we're going to want to know what is the mini milestones, what are the deliverables, what are the time phases or the deadlines, and then what are the leading or lagging indicators for that. So for this one, for my Q1, I already defined it up here. Between January and March, I need to figure out what is the best raw materials, best candle formulation. And then I'm going to divide this up into smaller mini milestones. So I'm going to have January, February, and March. And by the end of Q1, end of March, I'm going to figure out what's the best candle formulation. And let's divide this even further. The very first week of January, I need to come up with a test plan. In week 2, I need to define my first wax experiment. In week 3, I'm going to define my first wick experiment. And in week 4 of January, I will need to figure out the type of jar that I want to use. Now, in February is where I'm going to start testing fragrance 1. And then with this, what's the best wax? What's the best wick? What's the best jar that will help me with that fragrance? And so I'm going to actually explore different fragrance families. So I'm going to fragrance family 1. In the second week, fragrance family 2. And then the third week, number 3, and then the fourth week. And so from that, what's really cool about breaking it down from 1, 2, 3, and 4 is that I actually have scent seasons. So I want to find a scent for spring, for summer, for fall, and for winter. And these are going to be the ones that are going to be common so that when I go into Q2, I can start to optimize the fragrances. But for me, I just really want to define families right now so that I know how to optimize the wax, the wick, and the jar for that fragrance. And now in March, I'm going to define week 1 as the preliminary formula. In week 2, I'm going to test that formula. In week 3, I'm going to optimize that formula. And then week 4 is where I reflect and summarize. Based on all that, Q1, I will then have a best candle formulation defined. So that's how you break it down from the big execution strategy down to the very first milestone. Now, if you really wanted to make it even smaller, you can actually break down each of the smaller milestones into further. So for example, I could have just stuck to January and just defined my test plan, my wax, my wick, and my jar. And then at the end of January, I can go back to this test plan or this execution strategy and define my February milestones. And then at the end of February, I can go back and define my March milestones. And then once March is completed, I can go back and define my Q2 and further breaking it down to April, May, June. And then at the end of Q2, define Q3, break it down to July, August, September. So that's how I take my goal, break it down further into mini milestones. And with the mini milestones, I'll have every idea of what I wanted to do. The next step that you want to do is you want to review and revise. So you've got the plan, you're going to go out, you're going to do this. However, if you don't go back and take a look at, hey, how am I doing it according to what I had planned, then you don't know if you're on the right track. At the end of each of these milestones, I'm going to define a time where I'm actually going to sit down and review this game plan and how I'm progressing towards it using all these things like my leading, lagging indicators, my milestones, my execution strategy. One of the things I'm going to want to define is review milestone plan each Sunday. I chose Sunday because that's going to set the intentions for the following week. I'm going to understand from this what works, what doesn't work, and are there areas that I can, for example, if I'm falling behind, either trim the milestones or trim the execution strategy, or I can add to next milestone if I'm falling behind. If I am ahead of schedule, I can either go forward to next milestone and therefore I'm going to accomplish my goals even faster, or I can think about what more do I want to add to that particular milestone and therefore it becomes more of an exploration piece to it. But I will only do that if I am ahead of schedule. What you also want to do is once you finish your milestone plan, then your individual execution strategy that you've broken down, find time to also review that. So I'm going to review the execution strategy, and that's going to happen end of quarters. And for each execution strategy quarters, I'm going to again figure out what works, what doesn't work, where can I trim the strategy, where can I add to the next milestone, where can I, if I'm ahead of schedule, what next can I do, and what more can I add. So that takes care of review and revise. Super helpful because it helps you figure out whether you're on track or where you need to change a slight change of plans. The final thing, the bonus, what you guys have been waiting for. This I call a bonus because it's not necessary, but it's super helpful because as you're moving along, you're not going to remember off the top of your head your full execution strategy, which is why breaking it down into smaller milestones is very, very helpful. And to do that, to help you with that, is to take your intentions, your goals, your execution strategy, your milestones, everything that you've developed up until now, come up with 3 words or mantras to remind you of what your intentions that you set out for this year. As I mentioned, I want to focus on YouTube. I want to develop my candle making hobby and knowledge, but I also want to focus on my health and faith. And one really cool thing you can do here is once you have this, then you can put this into ChatGPT or other AI and have them come out with 3-word intentions. For example, if I talk about YouTube, that's going to be consistency, I need to be consistent. I need to create, whether it's creating YouTube, creating candle making. And then with my health and faith, that's going to be something I want to be considerate of. What would be really cool is if they can all start with the same letter, but that's not necessary. So for example, maybe consider is maybe too far of a stretch of a word for me when it comes to health and faith. So maybe I have to change considerate to focus on myself. Where this comes really helpful is as I'm moving forward and opportunities or decisions come my way, I can filter those opportunities or decisions based on consistency, create, and focus on myself. As an example, let's say I get the opportunity to go to a different country with my sibling, my sister, for example. She's invited me to a different country. And when I think about that country, it's going to cost money. So it's going to cost me time. And if I think about that, is now the best time for me to consider that opportunity? Well, how much time is that going to take? That's going to take me 2 weeks. Now, if I am ahead of schedule in my YouTube journey, then yeah, absolutely, I can go do that. However, if I'm falling behind and I need some of the money to help me build my candle business and I don't have all the money to go onto this trip, maybe that trip doesn't fit these 3-word intentions and therefore I should not go on that trip. That's how I take the 3-word intentions and filter my way forward. This right here, my 3-word intentions, I want to put it where it's somewhere where it's visible and even repeat it to myself daily. By doing that, these are ways to help yourself move forward and set that intention for the year.
Si tu veux avoir du temps, réfléchir à mes promesses. Je te dis, tu vas me perdre.
And there you have it. A highly effective method for setting intentions and building a roadmap to help you smash your goals. If you want a short template with these elements, click on the link in the description. If you found this video helpful, like, share, and subscribe, and join me on this journey as I redefine my new life. So let's start this new year right. To make it fabulous, choose one North Star goal to focus on, then build a path you can actually walk on. Let this year be the year that you smash your goals and change your life. Until I see you in the next year, be you, be bold, and be elegantly rebellious.
Ne réfléchis pas trop, la vie est courte, mon amour. Ne réfléchis pas trop.